Hey, Canteeners, welcome to episode 70 of Culper's Canteen Cup. We hope you enjoyed 69 dudes, and a shout out to Roger on that great cover art, man. I did a low effort rendition of that, and Roger's like, nope, that ain't good enough. I'm going to clean that up. So if you haven't seen that cover art, let's go, Brandon, and check it out on YouTube, man. Roger's shirt, awesome, man.
I
Better
love
than
it.
my woke,
I love
better
it.
than my woke hat last week. So I want to get an update from Josh on his progress on 75 hard, and then after you give us your update, I want to give the audience a little rundown of what I'm doing as far as that goes.
All right, yeah. So 75 hard. So I'm on day 17, day 16, day 17. I forget which one. I have to go back in and look at the app. So I only weigh myself on Mondays because you can't step on that scale every day because you're going to go up and down, and you're going to get discouraged and this and that. So right now I am down 10 pounds.
It's awesome.
Yeah, nah, man, it's awesome. And I tell you, the routine of getting up, right? And so I had to like this morning was a little hard. Like I was tired. I woke up and I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'll just try and squeeze in after I get home from work, 45-minute workouts. And it was like, no, that's silly because we're gonna record. You got dinner. You got kids and everything. And so it's like, okay, no, that's crazy. So I had to force myself to get up, went and did my 45-minute workout this morning, pounded a 32 ounces of water, and then started getting ready for work. And it's just a different. I feel different in the mornings when I'm getting ready for work, and like when I'm driving to work, like I'm actually awake. I'm awake, I'm alert, like I'm ready to start the day. Like I walk into the office not half dead, and I'm motivated, man. Like I go in, I'm awake, I'm ready to ready to get after it.
So you're
it's
down
going
10
good, man.
pounds, huh? 10 pounds?
Yeah, 10 pounds in 2 weeks.
That's awesome. So for all you viewers out there, they say video and TV adds 10 pounds. So what you're seeing Josh right now is the way he normally looks. That's the way he normally looks.
Roger's got jokes. That's good. He's trying to get me back for the Facebook post, from the episode.
That was pretty slick.
A couple of days ago. You like that? I didn't think you read it. Honestly.
I was sitting there. I'm sitting there, and I grabbed my cup of coffee, and and I got my glasses on, and I'm just kind of scrolling through. You wake up in the morning, like, all right, get my morning routine. I'm reading through it, and I'm like, this motherfucker, and I actually chuckled. I actually chuckled to myself. So yeah, it was pretty good, man. It was good timing.
No, you were, you hit me up and you're like, hey man, you need to, if you're gonna be the social media czar, you need to do your job, getting a low effort out of you, like Luke's last cover art. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I got a post for you. So
no, it was good. It was good. It literally made me chuckle when I was sitting there by myself. So it was a good way to start the day.
So before we dive in, I just had this great idea. And bounce it off the audience, bounce it off you guys. Joe Exotic. Remember Joe Exotic? If you guys have forgotten Joe Exotic, this is him right here. My daughter gave this coaster to me for my birthday, and I was looking down at that, and I was like, you remember that song he sang about the tiger? You remember that in the show Tiger King? It was really good country rendition, and he's on hard times. I wonder if we reached out to him at that federal penitentiary down in Fort Worth, if he'd let us use his music as intro. Dude, how awesome would that be? Joe Exotic doing the intro for Culper's Canteen Cup.
Even better. Let's see if we can get Joe Exotic to use his one phone call to call in.
We're going to learn about if that happens. If we could get Joe Exotic on this show, we would quickly learn about what the economists call economy of scale, because we'd have to scale up pretty quick. And Roger went out and he took it upon himself, this great initiative on his part, to come up with a different platform to record on. So now we're on Zencastr, and so far so good. But speaking of so far so good, with Josh's 10 pounds of this 75 hard, I was like, you know what? Who's this Nick? What is his name, Josh? The guy that came up with it?
Andy Frizzella.
Frizzella. It's like, what kind of name is Frizzella? This guy can come out with this, ridiculous thing. It's basically Ramadan for white boys. I can come up with something You know, because seriously, like Ramadan, Ramadan for white boys, man, that's 75 hard. It's exactly what it is. And Josh has been less crabby, actually. So maybe it's the opposite of Ramadan. But I'm coming up with my own thing. If Frizzella or whatever his name can do it, I can come up with something. And it's called 34.5 semi-flaccid. Okay. This is my version of 75 hard. And you're gonna cut your alcohol intake by half Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. You're going to read 5 pages of erotic fiction series from erotic fiction series writer E.L. James, better known for 50 Shades of Grey and all that. 5 pages a day, and you can listen to it if you want to. Or you can read it on a Kindle. You don't have to do this hard book stuff. Play a Squid game every day. So if you haven't seen Squid Game on Netflix, you have to like take a version of the games they play in that, and you have to play that every day. You drink a gallon of iced tea every day. Take a photo of your greatest enemy in your life. Josh, you know the former warrant officer you would take a photo of your greatest enemy, preferably in black and white, and put it on your bathroom mirror and just stare at it every morning, just like Rocky did with Ivan Drago in Rocky 4. So instead of that progress photo, just put a photo of your enemy on your mirror. And here's the trick, though, and this is the hardest part. Your favorite bad food, and Roger's got some good bad foods for his cheat days, you know. Your favorite unhealthy food, like if it's funnel cake or Big Macs or something, for the first week of 34.5 semi-flaccid, you will eat your favorite unhealthy food full serving 6 times a day for a week. For a straight week, 6 times a day. And at the end of that week, you're going to reflect on your poor life choices. You're going to make yourself not like that food. So I'm still refining my 34.5 semi-flaccid, but I think I'll be as big as Frizzella in no time.
I love it. I love the fact that your new job allows you to have a lot of time on your hands. That's
Dude, driving across the high plains, I send you guys pictures. I sent Roger and Josh a picture the other day. I'm driving just across the high plains, and I took a picture, sent it. It's like, this is what I'm looking at. And Josh is like, damn, that's flat as F. I was like, yep, that's the way it is. I take a picture 2 hours later and send it, and Roger's like, what, is that the same photo you sent 2 hours ago? So yeah, I have a lot of time to think. I
love it. I love it. No, man, you should, you should definitely get a book out on that, and because you need to do a deep dive on it, and get folks behind you, and then man, just get on a podcast, all right, here, and it's like, hey man, I'm giving this out for free. It's going to change your life. All I ask, just like Andy Frizzella, it's like, hey man, all I ask is just tell somebody about the podcast. That's all you got to do. Just tell somebody. That's how you pay me back, right?
You know what? I may be able to start a successful podcast if I do
that. Maybe even one with a website.
Oh, oh, zing!
Work in
zing.
Progress. Roger, why don't you get this thing on track, man? Get this thing on track. We're already off the rails, bro.
Hold on. Before you do that, I got a couple shout outs I need to give real quick, and then
okay. First of all, Roger, Josh, you need to start taking full advantage of this platform. You see, we got the little raise handy thing down here. I mean, you guys do Zoom meetings, What? Josh does the he does the Tubin Zubin or whatever. So he's got the little. Next time, if you can raise your little hand, and I think I can actually put it down. Maybe not. Put your pants back on, Josh. We're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm always doing the Tubin Zubin. Right? Just a couple of shout outs. Hey, real quick shout out to Graham Cracker listening. So Graham Cracker just sent me sent in our group text a picture. He got home and he had a deer stuck in his fence. So he got to use his new suppressor to go ahead and put that poor deer out of his misery. Yeah. Real quick shout out to Bourbon Dave. So Dave is he's currently in Kentucky at Old Forester doing a barrel pick of an Old Forester single barrel strength for the North Carolina Bourbon Society. The two Ryan's up in Nova. Appreciate you listening. JT up in Nova, and Bruce at work. I really appreciate you listening and entertaining us. And so I was talking to Bruce the other day, and this is absolutely bananas. So Bruce has, an RV He's actually got an RV that you drive, you don't tow it. Like it's an actual, like it's a motor coach. Like it's one of those, you look at it and you're like, dude, is that ZZ Top touring around? Because this thing is massive.
That there, Clark, is what they call an RV.
Bro, it is. Yeah, it is absolutely legit. Don't you go falling in love, because we're going to take her with her when we leave next month. And so Bruce, him and his family, they went out west a couple months ago, and we got to, we were just kind of talking, and he was telling a story when they went into California, they got stopped. Like almost all the major entries into California, they have inspection stations, and they are inspecting to see if you are bringing produce in.
Yep.
Because, dude, I was like, I'm sorry, what? You can't.
They've been doing this for like decades.
Well, it started in the 1920s, because I was like, at that point, I was like, what is going on? What is this? Like, I have to research it, right? So it started in the 1920s, but no, like they stopped. It's like it's like a truck weigh station. You got to pull in. They actually, come on board your vehicle, and they go through. They open cabinets, drawers, everything, and they're looking for fruits and vegetables and stuff. And so, like, I wrote down a couple of common ones. So apples and nectarines, if they are from the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and every single state east of there, they are not allowed to come into California without being inspected and issued a permit. Butternut can only come from California. It can't come from any other state. Citrus fruit can only come from California. It can't come from any other state unless it gets inspected and you get a permit. Chestnuts, only chestnuts from Arizona and California are allowed in California. Pecans can't come from anywhere unless they're inspected and you have a permit. And dude, I was like, what in the world is going on in California, dude? You couple that with them banning, small engines. So January 2024, no more gasoline engines in lawnmowers and pressure washers and stuff like that. It's done. Because
that's a front though, right? I mean, the fruit thing, like, it's been around for decades. I remember my younger years, teen years or whatever, lived in California and driving back and forth. It's been around forever. I mean, that's not seriously what they're doing. There's something else. There's some other reason that they're.
Dude, I have no idea, but that's absolutely, absolutely insane. You couple that with the battery thing, right? Do you think of how many small businesses utilize, small power equipment? You think of all the landscaping businesses, with, backpack blowers and, lawnmowers and zero turns and everything. And they're like, nope, they all have to be electric come 2024. Because we know that, digging in the earth for, batteries, to precious metals to make batteries like, like cobalt and stuff. We know that's a lot better than, all the carcinogens that, my little 3.5 Briggs and Stratton push mower puts out. It is absolutely insane. California, man. All I ask is, will the last American out of California please bring the flag? That's because that place is awesome.
Which flag? The Californian flag or the US flag?
No, not even the California flag, man. They're going to put a hammer and sickle on that bear and just call it a day. Hey, man, I was shocked. I had no idea about that. I learned something new, and it made me sad. So, I don't know.
I just don't understand how people that live there, and I think we talked about this before a couple of times, especially like up in the San Francisco area, and I'm not as familiar with the LA area and this and that, but like with San Francisco, I mean, I've watched that place go downhill since the 90s. And I wasn't even a long-term resident, right? I was there for school and the Army and whatever else. But, it used to be like, oh, you went down to Haight and Ashbury, and that's kind of like where all the crazy people hung out with, and this and that. And other than that, generally it was pretty clean. You had pockets just like any, major city does or whatever. But now, dude, it's like, holy cow. I mean, this whole place is a shithole. And I know we can use that term. I know I guess people are offended if we say other countries are shitholes. I guess we can say San Francisco's a shithole and we're fine. But for those long-term residents that have stayed there, that have watched it go downhill over the last at least 30 years, and maybe not 30, maybe about a good solid 20, it's like, it's mind-boggling to me, because I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. If I was watching my city go downhill like that, I would not vote you back in office. I mean, I would do everything I could to, when you look at the decline that they've had, just like with Denver. There's just no way, and they keep voting these same people in office year after year after year. I just don't get it. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. So much so, like even today, for the first time, it's actually the first time that I've sent an email to a Democrat politician. But I actually sent an email to Kirsten Sinema's office and was like, "Hey, I'm a conservative. I didn't vote for you, but I applaud what you're doing by standing up against the social spending bill and the filibuster." Just kind of left it at that or whatever. But it's the fact that she's probably the first politician. And I understand she's got her own agenda or whatever, but it's like, hey, Democrat, Republican, and I'm not saying I'd vote for her, but with the big issues, she's doing what I feel was right for our country and our state. Um, so I think generally I fall more conservative, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to your quality of life and your rights and this and that, I mean, dude, that has no party lines, Luke. Right? I mean, it's like I don't get how these same people get elected over and over and over and over again. And I tell you this, it's so much so that during the next, Mark Kelly, I mean, that dude's ghosted, but Sinema's catching a lot of flack out here. She's catching a lot of heat, especially from the progressives and the liberals, and it will cause me to really take a hard look and say, whoever, I don't know who the GOP is going to throw up, and but if the GOP throws up a very weak candidate, if it was like another Jeff Flake or something like that, dude, I'd probably have to vote for Sinema. I mean, actually, if Flake was running, I would vote for Sinema over Flake. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. I mean, that's, I wish Bonnie could hear you say that. Roger and Josh.
Well,
and Luke.
she can hear me. She can't hear you say it because you're blocked.
But everybody, Roger, Josh, and Luke are dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporters, MAGA for life, January, all this stuff, and it's like, no, we're all three of us, I think, pretty discerning. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Republicans are lately have been just a speed bump in general. Your Mitch McConnell's, Lindsey Graham. They're speed bumps. That's all they are. They talk a big game, looking at you, Dan Crenshaw. But man, where the rubber meets the road, you're not doing anything. And I gotta admire progressives for sticking to their own guns and really following through on what they say. Republicans never do that. They you got Mitch McConnell. Well, hold on there, Democrats. That's all he does. He doesn't stand up and do anything. So it's good to hear you say that you admire Sinema for standing up and like, hey, enough's enough. And I get what you're saying. It's like, who are they going to put up instead? I had a conversation today about, Greg Abbott and, Texas governor and, George P. Bush running for Texas AG and all this and that. And, inevitably the subject of Matthew McConaughey came up. And the conversation we were having, well, I won't vote McConaughey because he's going to be a Democrat. And I was like, well, it's not unprecedented for Texas, a red state, to vote in a Democrat governor because back when, her name escaped me, but we had a Democrat governor a few years back. Her name escaped me. And Texas was as red as it ever was in the presidential election with her as governor. God, I'm blanking on her name. And I said about Matthew McConaughey, I said, I'll have to see what his policies are. I have to see where he stands. I'm not going to vote for him because I think he's a cool actor and he's got a great voice and all that stuff. I want to see what his policies are first. I'm not just going to vote straight R ticket. And I feel that way stronger than I ever have right now. So I'm glad you brought that up, Roger. It's like, I'll vote for Sinema if they put up a Jeff Flake. Of course I will, because Jeff Flake is just a wolf in sheep's clothing, just a speed bump. Yep. You're not going to do anything. What do you stand for? Are you conservative or are you just a, establishment, neocon, whatever? So, yeah, I mean, Josh, what, you said earlier, we have to take Congress in 2022. You said that. And did you mean the House and the Senate? Because I think the House is a slam dunk, personally. I think it's a slam dunk. My question is, what do you think first of all, do you agree with the House being a slam dunk? And second question, do you think we have a chance at the Senate?
So the House, I don't know that the House is a slam dunk. So because I'd have to go back and see. I'm not prepared to to speak on the races that are going on in 2022 for the House right now. I do think there's some states that are up for grabs. Some obviously, well, some districts for the House. I think the Republicans just flipped one. I can't remember if it was in Iowa or Indiana. It's been blue for decades, and they finally flipped it, and so and I have to go and see which races in the Senate are going to happen, and I don't think the Republicans have to take both. I mean, they could take one, and at least that would, as far as legislation goes, that would be able to stop some of the nonsense that they're trying to push through. Because you take a look at even the filibuster, and let's take the Senate. Dude, the only two people holding the line in the Senate is Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. They are the two most powerful politicians in Washington D.C. today,
Yep.
hands down.
Yep.
And that margin can't get any smaller for the Republicans. Because if it gets any smaller for the Republicans, it's going to be done. I think. You know what we don't want. You take a look at Byers on the Supreme Court. That dude, he's no spring chicken. And I mean, anybody could go at any time, right? Tomorrow is promised to no man. But if I had to take my bets, I'd probably bet Byers would go before before
Well, and they're trying to pressure him to resign or to
they want
retire.
him to retire now so that he can, so Biden can appoint a new one. And so I just, that I'm not so much worried about the Supreme Court justices right now because we were able to get three on the bench. So I think we're good there. My worry is now is just the laws that they are trying to push, through. And I agree with you. I dude, when it comes to Kristen Sinema, you being in Arizona and everything, I'm not in West Virginia, but if I was a West Virginian, depending upon what Republican run it, like I would vote for Joe Manchin in a heartbeat. Because I think Joe Manchin is the last one of the few moderates on either side. That is actually he has the country's best interest in mind, and he understands that you can't operate where you have a pack court that's changing laws every 4 years, knowing that would create so much turmoil and turbulence for the states. You can't have, the filibuster gone, because it would just, he understands that. And he understands, he's like, this might not be the popular decision, but I'm going to go ahead and be the unpopular person because it's what's best for the nation. And going back and taking a look at his voting record, he has always, for the most part, he has been a steady hand, and he's been predictable. He's not too far on, in either direction. And if the country needs anything right now, it's moderates, and 100% on folks like Dan Crenshaw and Jeff Flake and Mitt Romney. Those guys, they talk a good game, they tweet a good game. They're good on social media for their staffer that's writing that for them. But dude, they are absolute empty suits. Yeah, Liz. Luke brought up Liz Cheney as well. Just the completely empty suit, and that's a good point on the census. So California actually lost seats in the House due to the exodus of folks leaving. I don't think it's not going to be enough to flip California red by any means, any stretch of the imagination, but hopefully it'll give them something to think about. One thing I think is going to weigh heavily in this is Biden's approval numbers, man. Biden's approval number continues to go down. It's at what, like 38% now? And there's nowhere else for it to go. I mean, it is bad. It is bad. And, I think
Let me ask you something on that. So the Quinnipiac poll has him like 30 some odd percent, which they generally poll more liberals than they do Republicans, which means that it's lower than that, right? It's actually probably in the 20s. Let me flip that around. What 20% of who thinks that Joe Biden's doing a good job? Right? That number should be down at 4.
Yeah. That's for that's for the people who, no matter what, no matter come hell or high water, dude, their house could be burning to the ground. Joe Biden could have set it on fire and they will be like, nope, he's a Democrat. I'm voting for Biden, or, riding with Biden, regardless. And so you have those folks on both sides, you know. So my fear is this with Biden's approval numbers is that he is going to have to do something radical to get them up and to shore up the base. And desperate people do desperate things. You know, we just had that hypersonic test from China. We just had a hypersonic test today that the DoD announced. I think that was intentional. But I don't know if you guys were tracking. I posted it in our little group chat earlier today. So Evergrande. You know, we were talked about that a couple of episodes ago, and Luke had been following them and everything. And Evergrande was, you know, they were getting ready to go bankrupt, you know, go bankrupt because their bills were due and they didn't have the money to pay them. Well, the Hobson Development Group that was going to bail them out and pay it. So that deal fell through today. And now Evergrande is within days of those bills being due. And the person
Saturday.
the person who they thought was going to pay those bills for them is not going to pay those bills for them. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Is the U.S. going to step in and bail China out like, you know, Bush 1 did and Clinton did and Bush number 2 to an extent? Or are we going to let China go? Because here's what happens if we let that go. If we just let Evergrande fail and be like, hey, man, you know, sorry about it. The Chinese economy is going to get hit pretty hard, which means, you know, our economy and their economies, they're intrinsically linked. And so that means our economy is going to go down. And that means, you know, approval numbers are going to continue to tank for the president. So what is he going to do, you know, drastic? What is he just going to come off the rails and sua sponte, you know, that's going to be severely radical to try and boost those poll numbers up? I don't know. But we've seen that when you put these people in, you know, you back them into a corner, they tend to make very, very rash decisions. You know, and nothing is coming out of Goebbels. I mean, I'm sorry, Psaki. And the Ministry of Truth, even though, you know, dude, like the other day, like the late night, you know, the middle of the night flights where they're resettling, you know, illegal aliens across the United States, you know, like Ducey called her out. And what's her response? Well, those were at 2:00. So that's more like an early morning flight, not a middle of the night flight.
Earlier than you like to fly
Right.
out.
Yeah. No, man. An early flight is I got to be at the airport at 4 because my flight is at like 5:15. That's an early morning flight. An early morning flight is not 2 when all the TSA checkpoints are closed and like there's no flights leaving. That's not an early morning flight. That's a middle of the night flight. And just that level of just like, well, I'm just going to tell you whatever. And no matter how ridiculous it is, that's what you're going to have to accept as the truth. That's insane. And, you know, so for Luke, I want to ask you this. What do you think if Evergrande fails? You know, it's obviously going to hurt the Chinese economy, but how bad do you think it will impact our economy?
I think that in the short term, I think that we'll continue to see supply chain problems, and they'll exacerbate and get worse. And we'll get Roger's thoughts on Mayor Pete, Big Boy Pete, and his paternity leave. He's going to love going off on that. So I think in the short term, definitely supply chain issues. I think that the narrative in the short term will be, well, this is Trump's fault because of what he was trying to do with China. With the tariffs and the trade war and all that stuff, and this may have never happened. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. There are two separate realities in this nation right now. I think you'll see a shift of blame on Trump, and I think, Josh, you were saying, will we bail them out again? I think that just based on how the administration is acting toward China right now, we will help them and in any way we can. It may not be widely publicized, but economy, one of the national security strategies that's been employed for the past 30 years or more is intertwining the two economies. It just naturally has worked that way. There's a lot of scholarly studies on that, and that's at a very high level. If you intertwine economies, enough, you can almost guarantee there's not going to be war because you're hurting yourself if you go to war with them. But you're also hurting yourself if their economy starts to tank or does tank, which the world saw in 2007, 2008, when we had the housing crisis. So everything is so intertwined that it definitely will impact. But man, how much worse does it get? I mean, we called this, Roger loves and to tell people, and he's absolutely right to do it, that, you need to listen to this show, man, because we called this in March of last year of 2020. We were calling this in March. It's like, folks, it's going to get bad. And this is exactly what we were talking about. You're, it bothers me. It doesn't bother a lot of people, but it really bothers me. And maybe I grew up, in the 80s and 90s where we had so much. I just get a certain level of comfort from going into a grocery store. And I didn't even know I had this comfort until it didn't exist anymore, is going into a grocery store and seeing fully stocked shelves of shit that I will never buy. I like seeing it. I love seeing, the hostess aisle where it's all that crap is just there. And it's like, man, don't we live in a great country? This is great. Yes.
Unless it's at Costco. If it's at Costco, even if like you don't want it,
oh yeah. That's where it backfires on you. But I mean, it really bothers me, walking into stores and seeing, we don't have pepperonis today. We may have them next week. We may not. I don't know when we're getting them. It's just, to me, that is a sign of bad things. So Josh, I don't know how well I answered that question. I do think that, I don't know if everything hinges on Evergrande. I think there's a lot of, if it completely fails, I think we could see a cascade of other failures in China because of the radical construction boom that they've been doing for the past 15 years. And, those bills are coming due, and, they have the labor force. They definitely have the labor force, but it's the cheap labor force that works in, the Xinjiang province putting together iPhones. It's not the labor force, the white collar labor force that are going to fill, these massive downtown areas with these, 100-story skyscrapers. So I could see a cascade, but I think that the administration now will do whatever they can to avoid it. So Roger, with the supply chain issues, if you were, let's say, a first sergeant of a company, and the company had a sexual assault case, and then a drunk driving case, and then a lost set of nods, two lost sets of nods, and let's say that a weapon is missing out of the arms room, but your wife just had a baby. Would the company commander, better yet, would the battalion sergeant major take kindly to you saying, well, I'm entitled to 60 days of paternity leave? I mean, would that fly or not at the first sergeant level, company level?
I tell you, it would fly much smoother if it was maternity leave over paternity leave, right? That's my problem with a lot of this stuff. And I know we're switching here because it's actually a good transition, because when we talk about supply chain issues, and another reporter actually asked this, I forget who it was. It wasn't Fox News. It was one of the other MSM reporters, but they asked Psaki, they're like, hey, this is October of 2021. COVID came around, February, March of 2020. Joe Biden was elected in January. So why are you just now dealing with the ports and supply chain issues and this and that? You've had it almost an entire year. I even saw a post the other day. Hey, he's only been in office for 10 months. Give him a break. Dude, like 25% of his term's almost over. It's like, why weren't you addressing this, when the day that you took over? You have to have that foresight, right? To say, hey, we're going through issues. We're going to go through some issues. We need to start taking actions now. And so then you have, your transportation secretary, who, I don't know if anybody's seen that there. We need to actually post a picture of it where I think he put it on Twitter, where it's him and his husband, and they do this mock, he's like a little bit disheveled. It looks like he's kind of sort of wearing a hospital shirt, but not, it's not real clear. It could be one. And they're kind of like maybe sort of lying in a hospital bed. Maybe, you can't kind of tell. And, it looks like a hospital setting. And, you could almost maybe kind of see a little wristband that like maybe he was checked into a hospital. It's like, dude, you guys adopted a kid. Like, you didn't give birth. I mean, I don't care what you call it. And this is not even an LBGQT, none of that. Like, you did not give birth. You adopted a kid, you adopted a child. And there's two issues with it. One, so I do believe in the sanctity of like motherhood and giving birth. Like maternity leave is because, the lady just pushed out, an 8-pound bowling ball out and needs time to recover. Okay. Because in the army, they'd be like, hey, give her a PT test today. It's like she just gave birth yesterday. Well, she's not carrying the baby then, right? So that time is to recover, physically, mentally, emotionally, bond with the child, take care of the child, and this and that. And I know some of that stuff is dated, and it's probably, some things that we did, years ago that people don't necessarily accept anymore. But I still believe in that. There is a physical recovery that needs to go on, as long as as well as the other bonding and this and that. So I understand the maternity piece. I'm not a big fan of the paternity leave. I'm just not. It's I get it if somebody needs a couple of days off or a week off. Because I'm not saying not to be compassionate. I mean, you do have things to work out as far as daycare and food and getting things up. Not that you didn't have 9 months to do this previously, or in the case of adopting, I don't know how long they've been planning that or whatever. He's obviously got a lot of means to him, as well as his boyfriend or husband or whatever. So I don't think money's an object, but I get it for your typical American out there that needs a few days, a week, or whatever. I can buy some of that stuff.
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but dude, here's my problem with it. And tell me if I'm all messed up, right or wrong or whatever. And this may be a little controversial to our more snowflakey type listeners out there. But it's like, dude, you knew for a while, if you went through the adoption process, that you were going to have a child. Okay, let's leave the uterus thing out of it. Right. Okay, so but here's mine, is that your transportation secretary, if you need maternity or paternity leave, if it was a female who was pregnant, dealing with COVID, and not just COVID, the disease, the fallout of it, maybe you're not the right person for the job. And maybe you should realize that you're not going to be able to have a baby. You're not going to be able to take leave because your job is just too important, period. That's the way I see it. And, people may say, oh, Luke, that's sexist. Because you're saying a woman couldn't do it while she's pregnant. Well, hey, if a woman needs time to recover as the transportation secretary or the whatever, if your position is that high, man, maybe you're not the right person for the job right now. If this was 2018, 19, when the economy is booming before we ever even heard of COVID, maybe then we could handle it. Maybe you are the right person for the job. You can step back, have your deputy come in, but we're in crisis times right now. That's my problem with it, man. I didn't mean to. Well, I did mean to cut you off, but I didn't mean to be rude.
No, it's you're actually addressing the broader issue I was going to get to. So let me go back to Buttigieg, with his paternity leave, maternity leave, or whatever it is. So they had the photos. Okay, he takes leave, and then you have a deputy, right? You have a deputy Secretary of Transportation or whatever. So that person is John Bakari, who, by the way, is also the port czar. So how in the hell are we stuck with 100 some odd ships off the coast of LA? You can't make this up. And so that takes me to the broader topic that you're getting to. And here's what it boils down to. They do not care. I don't know, and I don't know any other, I don't have any strong, well, I do have stronger words I'd use, but we try to keep this, fairly clean. They don't care. It pisses me off to sit there and watch the president of the United States, man, woman, Democrat, Republican, I don't care who you are, turn your back on the American people and walk off and not take questions. It pisses me off to hear the snarky comments from Jen Psaki. It pisses me off to hear the cackling laugh from Kamala Harris. This is not funny. Like, I don't understand, if we're talking about a booming economy or booming jobs report, or that's the time to joke, right? Haha, yeah, that's funny, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, so, we're in the middle of this crisis, this pandemic, and yada, 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 and you've got jokes. It's like, maybe now is not the time to be snarky. Hey, take it seriously. Right? Yeah. And Luke, you're typing up just up there, the tragedy of the delayed treadmill delivery. Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, this is not funny. What part of this is funny? Kamala Harris. Well, I'm not going to the border today. It's like, what part of that is funny? No part of it is funny, and nothing will be held, nothing will, they're not going to hold any of them accountable. It's like Joe Biden talking about the Americans and them coming home from Afghanistan, which, by the way, are still over there. Hey, when we bring them back, you'll be the first one to know. What kind of joke is that? Like, why is that funny to anybody? And I think the media is finally starting to catch on. And it just goes back to, well, it's twofold. So you've got those that toe, and I'm talking about his administration. You've got those that don't care. You've got those that are going to toe the party line, which I think a lot of DOD is doing. They're just going to do it because I'm the soldier. I'm towing the party line. And then you got those that I look at Mayor Pete. Dude, he's just incompetent. I mean, he just he doesn't even know it, dude. It doesn't even oh yeah, I am the transportation secretary. Maybe I should take care of this whole port thing and whatever. And you brought up a valid point. It's like, hey, if you gave a crap during this time, if you find that you can't do the job, or because here's the thing, even as he's at home at paternity leave or whatever. I mean, he's not breastfeeding, right? You got two of you there. They make good money. I don't know why he still can't work from home. Everybody worked remote during COVID for a year and a half. So, I mean, even if he has to offset some of those or delegate some of those responsibility to an undersecretary, a deputy secretary, or whatever, I mean, he's got the ability to do that. But it goes back to your point that, well, hey, maybe if you've got all this stuff going on in life, which that's on them. I mean, more power to them. That's great. Maybe now is not the right time for me to be, in this department or to have this job. Because guess what? We had this problem last year. But that goes back to they didn't have the foresight to even say, hey, this was going to be an issue. And, Psaki's snarky response, well, that's because demand is up. Really? That's the answer. What a spin, man. That's because demand is up. And some of that demand is up. Demand is up with government money that was given to folks that are going out to buy stuff that they bought 8 months ago that they're finally starting to get around to get in the ports. We're not talking about created money where you went out and produced something, manufactured something, earned something or whatever. So even at that point, it's all just fake. And that goes back to, and I know we're all over the place on this thing, but that goes back to the economy. When you look at, people like to look at the end result and they say, the market's up and a couple other indicators. It all comes down to productivity. Okay. And we talked about this in our early episodes, difference between communism, socialism, capitalism, right? It's all about your inputs and outputs and where those are coming from and who owns those. Okay. Having a solid unemployment number, but having that because the federal government is employing the 350,000 people weekly, that is not good. Yeah, the number looks good, right? But that is not good because that is not private businesses in the private sector creating jobs. Okay. Consumer spending being up is not good if that spending is coming from stimulus checks given out by the government. Right? The number looks good. Hey, consumer spending is up, but it's not good when it's stimmy checks coming in versus somebody went out and found a job and what have you. I mean, dude, it's painful. And I think that, a lot of folks, a lot of Americans out there, I think they see it. And even, I do want to, it's actually pretty good transition because the next thing I wanted to bring up was the 2022 elections. You go into 2024 and McConnell, I think, did play this card right with, we got to get away from Trump himself as an individual. Okay. Now you can applaud his efforts. You can applaud his policies and the fighting spirit and this, that, which I do, but I don't think you can necessarily go back and continue to play that card. I'm a Trump guy. I'm a Trump girl. I don't think you can do that. You have to display that fighting spirit and the willing to do, to place America first. What I haven't seen lately, though, in the last week or so, especially on the mainstream media, you don't really hear a whole lot of it was Trump, it was Trump, it was Trump outside of the 6th January thing, because I think what you're seeing right now, and Republicans are doing the right thing for the first time in a long time. They're just keeping their pie hole shut, because it's Democrats that are beating up on them. Democrats are beating up on Joe Biden. Democratic voters and the progressives, they're coming back. And fortunately, for the first time in a long time, the GOP is just kind of sitting back and saying, hey, you know what? Let them duke it out, because they're beating each other up, which is the way to go. Going back to some of the folks that we're talking about, Josh said, hey, we need more moderates in there. You're absolutely right. Because I tell you, here's your thing, like your Romneys and your McCaskells and your Sasses and your Collins, they're not moderates. They're just anti-Trump. So they try to portray themselves as moderates. No, just because you're against the president doesn't make you a moderate, right? But it's going back to the cinema thing, it's at least I believe with her that she is doing what she feels is the right thing for this country moving forward. And I can live with that. I can live with that. So I don't know, Josh, what do you think about, what do you think about moving forward with this 2022 election? Look at Virginia, dude. I mean, that thing, you talk about a bellwether. If Youngkin comes back and beats McAuliffe, I mean, that has got to be an eye opener, right? It's got to be an eye opener. And I like the rhetoric that's coming out from this. It's the support for the Trump doctrine, policies, this and that, but not necessarily an endorsement of Trump. And I think that's the fine line that you have to walk. Okay. Because like we've said before, I'm never inviting President Trump over to like babysit my kids. God knows. I love his policies. I love what he did by placing America first. Do I think he's a great dude? Probably not. But I think that, they've been able to kind of walk that fine line. Even though out here I've seen, it seems like they've crossed it a little too much for my taste, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on, that Trump doctrine for 2022, and then your thoughts on the Virginia race.
So I was, I've been watching the McAuliffe, good thing, and McAuliffe actually got up and walked out of an interview the other day, and all they did was ask him, because he's campaigning on, schools. That's one of his, that's one of his big punchlines is, we got to do what's best for the schools. We got to make sure the schools are good. And so a reporter asked him, okay, well, what's your plan? And he threw a temper tantrum and got up and walked out. Like, didn't do the interview. So I think McAuliffe is slipping a little bit, but I don't know if that's going to be enough, even coupled with the disaster that is Loudoun County, Virginia, and their school board. I don't know if you guys are tracking that, the latest out of there. I don't know that those two things coupled together are going to be able to overcome the electorate of Northern Virginia. It is, that's obviously a very densely populated area. It's very, very blue. I don't know that that's yeah,
It's the Democrats'
yeah,
Texas, right? I mean, that's what I think. I
yeah,
think it's a Democrats' version of Texas. Hey, we can get it this time. Just one more.
yeah.
Nope, we lost.
I don't know that that's going to be enough to overcome McAuliffe in Virginia. But Virginia is also one of those states that they go back and forth. It's kind of like North Carolina. North Carolina is a majority red state, but yet they elected a Democratic governor. Virginia, you know, it's again, man, it's hard to beat that population density in Northern Virginia, but on occasion they'll elect a Republican. Um, so Virginia is a toss up. I definitely think the momentum is not is not with McAuliffe right now, which is good. Um, so as far as the Trump doctrine and people, I think you're spot on. I think people are embracing Trump's policies without using his name, and this is and this is why I don't want Trump to run in 2024, and is because if Trump runs in 2024, they split the base. Um, you know, even if he won the primary, all of those folks who are like, man, I can't vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for Biden just because I hate Trump so much. Those same people, a lot of those same people right now are like, wow, man, this Biden is he's terrible. Like, he's worse than Jimmy Carter, like 100 times worse than Jimmy Carter ever. Dude, Jimmy Carter, his last year in office. So Jimmy Carter's last year in office, his approval rating was not as low as Joe Biden's is right now, 10 months in. Like, that's how bad Joe Biden's doing, for anybody who wants to put that in perspective. And hey, man, if everybody wants to, you want to keep voting for Joe Biden, and you might not, this might happen before 2024. You want lines at the gas pumps? You want gas rationing? Well, FAFO, right? You may get that, and so I think that's what I think a lot of those people, you lose them who would be like, man, I'm not voting for Biden under any circumstances. You lose them if Trump is the other option, or those folks just stay home, and we can't have them stay home, especially with the mail-in ballots that are going to be as prevalent as they are now. Um, you can't have people stay home. People, for those who listen to this, and I'm going to assume that most of you guys kind of skew conservative. If you don't skew conservative, hit us up, let us know. We would love to have you on. We would love to chat with you. You know, non-confrontational, non-hostile. You know, we would love just to be able to chat with you. But you know, if you're listening, you cannot pick sides anymore. Like you can't straddle the fence anymore. You have to pick a side, and you can't straddle the fence. You can't just say, "Well, I'm just going to stay home and not vote." Those days are over. Honestly, those days are over. You have got to get out and vote. You've got to go do it. And real what? Yeah, 81 million people, y'all.
81
If
million.
you believe it, 81
81
million.
million.
So real quick on the Mayor Pete thing. Um, the whole paternity leave thing, I completely agree. It's complete BS. You know, hey man, you know, take your week or two, you know, to make sure that your wife is settled in, and, you know, everything's good and stuff like that. But hey man, like those bills are still coming. Like you got to get out and work. And especially if you're the transportation secretary in a crisis, that's like, dude, that's like the 82nd Airborne Division commander being on leave when they've got to blow out the Ready Brigade. And he's like, well, man, no, I'm good. I'm on leave. Sorry. Hopefully hopefully the deputy commander can take care of that. Like that's not happening. Like, you know, dude, 9/11. I'm sorry. I'm on leave. Nah, my bad. Yeah, man. No, I'm on leave. I just adopted a kid. And if you go back to episode 18 of Culper's Canteen Cup, Fit for a King, right? That's a 2 to 7 year process on average. To adopt a child in the United States is a 2 to 7 year process on average. So you knew what you were doing long before you know became the Secretary of Transportation. And you know, but I also fault the folks who nominated him after, you know, the Secretary of Transportation. All right, so what's your experience in transportation? I ride on a train. I like trains. Well, dude, I like baseball, but that don't make me a Major League Baseball player, and that doesn't. You know, I mean, I've been to baseball games. That don't make me a effing baseball player. So it's just it's a complete disaster from, you know, from soup to nuts on this thing. Um, it's not gonna get any better. That's why at least like we have got to take one of the chambers, and for AOC, when we talk about the chambers of Congress, that's the Senate and the House. Uh, you know, just in case you're still wondering, and for those of you out there who had passed the third grade, uh, yeah, you have to. You have to. And just real quick, last thing I'll say on Mayor Pete, and then give it over to Luke is I don't care for all you alphabet people out there. Mayor Pete and his partner, husband, whatever he is, they did not have a baby. It is scientifically impossible for either one of them to birth a baby. They lack this thing called a uterus. Therefore, it is, you believe in science, you know, you like to walk around and, you know, talk about science and, you know, the science of climate change and the science of the COVID vaccine. Well, this is actual science. A man cannot have a baby. It is scientific. It is impossible. So write that down, take notes, swirl it around in your head. And with that, I'll kick it over to Luke without even asking a question.
I don't know, man. I want to question your science because, you know, this photo here,
dude. Two guys are holding a baby sitting in a hospital bed. Did that baby?
Yeah, you see how they make it look, you know? Yeah. Oh, and you actually can see the medical bracelets on both of them.
You know, I'll make a couple points here. You know, there's I really love, the only thing I love more than disagreeing with you guys and getting in a big argument and saying F you, why I'm done with Culper's Canteen Cup. You know, and MF and Josh behind his back to Roger, and MF and Roger behind his back to Josh. The only thing I like better than that is agreeing with you guys. And we'll hit this one, all three. I love the echo chamber. I just love it. You know, Mike Durant, as we were talking about, Mike Durant came out and said exactly, and this, you know, it said exactly what needed to be said. And the only thing I like even better than agreeing with you guys is pumping myself up and telling everybody I told you so. There's a certain politician out there who I confided in this politician who is running for office. Back when they threw their hat in the ring to run, they saddled their star, or they saddled their horse to Trump's star. And my point to this politician was, you don't have to do that. You do not have to do that. You can say, make America great again without saying MAGA. You can say, build that wall without saying, build that wall. You can say, lock her up without saying those exact words. The feeling of the American people is still there. The feeling for Trump may not be. But what got Trump elected, those feelings are still there. So don't saddle your political horse to his, or carriage or whatever, to his star. Say your own thing. If you believe that, say your own thing. And that's exactly what Mike Durant's doing. He's saying, look, I agree with all the policies, don't agree with the man, but I agree with all the policies. Dude, you don't even have to say that. And, just say what the people want to hear. Don't say what they want to hear. Say what you believe. Those same platforms that he ran on, say it, but just in a different way. You don't have to be him, so we'll see what happens with this politician. But, it is frustrating when it's frustrating to be right all the time, isn't it, guys? I mean, it's frustrating.
No, you know what it is? It's not being right.
Yeah.
Everybody saw this. I mean, I always go half and half. When they talk
No, it's all
about,
right.
and I know I totally just hijacked your segment here, but they talk about like the Southwest pilots and this and that, right? I don't feel sorry for not one of them. You know why? Because your union backed Joe Biden. Okay. I can give some leeway to Barry because he kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody knew who he was. Young, good looking dude, articulate, he's enthusiastic, some charisma. I get it, right? No past performance. Joe Biden had over 4 decades in office. 4 decades. There were no secrets there. So it's not that we were right. Everybody knew this, but it's like this. It's kind of like when your car gets stolen, right? So you're parked in a hotel. You park it, right up here at the front or whatever, and you come out and your car's not there, and then you still walk around the hotel. Like maybe like some slim chance you actually park behind the hotel and not, front. So you walk around for like 15, 20 minutes before you actually call the cops. That's what it is, man. Because people, it's like, what's coming. You just hope that, maybe I'm just wrong. I don't want to believe what's happening. Well, nothing, outside of the 8 years as vice president and the other, 40 or 39 years, in the Senate. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? Right. Plenty of past performance there. So when they talk about these 81 million and all these people that are pissed off now, and I know not all of them, because a lot of folks, there's still, 77 million that voted for Trump, but all these people coming out and these teachers and this, hey man, you know what? You voted for him. You're getting exactly what you voted for. And I hate to sound angry about it, but I get pissed off because we told you so. Right. And not just us, not talking about C3 and us three, but like folks out there were telling people, even with Donald Trump, with the messaging. I mean, I just saw one the other day where he was like, yeah, we're going to go through a recession if you elect this guy, yada, yada, yada. And I get it, as Donald Trump and some people don't like him, but everything he said was true. Everything he said was true. And so people, just didn't want to believe it.
That was good.
But anyway, sorry for hijacking
good points,
your
man. You
piece there.
That's
what pisses me off.
Say it while it's on your mind. I mean, that's all good points. It all the way around. It's frustrating. And what's more frustrating about it is we're in it for 4 years, and it's just, man, it's going to be a long 4 years. And what's interesting, Josh brought up Jimmy Carter, and it got me to thinking, I wonder what Jimmy Carter's approval rating, and I know the polls, are done differently now and everything. It may not be as accurate back then, but I wonder what his approval rating was right after Desert One. I mean, I think that would be something to see, is like, wow, because I bet it tanked, and I don't know. I thought that was interesting. You all know how I feel about Mayor Pete, but Josh is bringing up the no uterus thing, and it kind of reminded me of something that happened to me 2 nights ago. Sitting there watching a Squid Game and enjoying the hell out of it, and I just can't stay away from the news. Roger's laughed about Squid Game, but I can't stop watching. I can't stop checking the news. I got to check the news. So I checked the news real quick on my app there, Ground News, and Netflix CEO or whatever kind of started caving to the pressure of his own employees, protesting outside of Netflix, headquarters, saying, Dave Chappelle is a hate monger and all this stuff. And the CEO came out and said, maybe I should have thought this through before putting it on. And I panicked. And I was like, I've been meaning to watch The Closer. It's what his new special on Netflix is called. It's called The Closer. And so I turned off Squid Game, which was hard, and turned on Chappelle's, new special. And, put it to you this way: if you have seen it, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I'd recommend going and watching it. And even my mom and dad, I told them, it's harsh. The language is harsh, but you should go watch it because it's some of the most genius comedy in a very long time. He confronts certain issues, and he really, really, the reason Netflix employees were upset is because he took on the transgender issue. He calls, LGBTQ, he calls them the alphabet people. And one of the reasons his comedy is so genius is because he'll make you laugh and like, yeah, isn't life just like that? Yeah, ha ha ha. But then he'll bring it back around and really make you examine your own way of thinking about things. It makes you examine yourself while you're laughing. And that's genius. And there are two, and now they're trying to crucify him. They're trying to cancel him. If they had their way, they want to lock him up, man. Throw away the key. There was a lot of people out there that would be perfectly happy with the cops rolling in during Dave Chappelle's show while he's saying these things, arresting him and throwing him in jail. There were two other comedians like that. One was called Lenny Bruce, who was a groundbreaker back in the 50s. And he said some harsh language that cops would roll him up and put him in jail because, it was censorship straight up. And George Carlin. Those two, he got thrown in jail too. He was a genius. You go back and listen to his specials today. It's the same as Reagan's speech at the 68 convention. Go and listen to it today. It applies the same way, and that's genius. So I would encourage everyone, as long as we're talking about Mayor Pete and the uterus and transgender and all this stuff that's so confusing to someone who's grounded in fact and science and truth, go watch Closer by Dave Chappelle because, man, it'll blow you away if you can get over the way he talks. Same as George Carlin. You get past all the F-bombs and, the crude language and really listen to the substance of it. It's genius. Truly is. So that was powerful to me anyway, and I just think it's funny. Anyone criticizing Dave Chappelle and trying to cancel him are the same people who would have thrown Lenny Bruce in jail, would have thrown George Carlin in jail, would have Tipper Gored people, parental labels and stuff like that. So anyway, that was kind of really off the rails, but it made me think of Dave Chappelle Closer. Roger, do you have any comments on anything other than Squid Game? Because that's really on my mind, dude. Squid Game, I can't stop thinking about it. It's crazy.
I did finish watching Squid Games last week, and it's pretty good. I like it. I dug it, and it was kind of cool being able to hear the Korean and read the English subtitles and stuff like that. Kind of helped me in my own language proficiency. But I want to throw this out to Josh because you're talking about the Dave Chappelle show, and we almost watched it the other night. We may watch it tonight or maybe this weekend with the wife. But when did people stop just like changing the channel? I mean, it's like the Howard Stern movie, right? With Private Parts, when they were talking about, X amount of million people listen to him. Why? Well, because they want to hear what he's got to say next. What about the people that hate his guts? It was more, well, because they want to hear what he says next, right? It's like, when did people just say, hey, if it's not impacting me, right? If it's not impacting me and damaging our nation as a whole or our culture as a whole or whatever, because I think it's pretty clear, it's the Dave Chappelle's new show is not going to damage the culture of America, or anything like that. Whatever happened, it's kind of like Facebook. Like, why don't you just scroll through? Like Netflix has got, 500 million movies on there, 15 of them are pretty good. So why not just go on to something else? I mean, when did everybody, it's like, no, I have to sit here and I have to watch this to get butthurt. Like, when did that change? It just seemed like it was all of a sudden.
It started probably in the 90s during the dot-com boom. And so because I've thought about this before a couple times. Back in the 80s, I remember, so I remember growing up and I remember my dad, working. Dude, my dad wasn't busy. He wasn't. He didn't have enough time on his hands to be offended about anything because dad was, hey, I got to go get to work. I have to go to work to support my family, to make sure there's food on the table. My mom was like, I don't have time to be offended about anything, because I got to get you kids to school. I got to get you your doctor's appointments. I got to get to work. I got, like it was we weren't rich enough for people just to sit around and find something to be offended about. But here comes the .com boom. Here comes the late 90s. Here comes the early 2000s. And people are comfortable. People are comfortable, man. People have time to go sit in a coffee shop, instead of working because, they got enough cash flow from whatever coming in, as, wages are going up and, the economy is great. Um, and people had time to sit around and say, well, I can't complain about, my job. I can't complain about, my coffee, my latte, this or that, or anything else. So what can I complain about? Because people have to complain about something. The majority of people, myself included, I mean, we're like privates in the military, right? You're going to bitch about something, no matter how good you have it. That's just kind of, that's kind of what you do. And so people started, they started looking at it and were like, well, I have to complain about something. I'm going to complain about that because I don't have anything else to complain about. Those of us who grew up with the George Carlins, those of us who grew up with the Richard Pryors, the Eddie Murphys, those of us who grew up, like, dude, I remember when Two Live Crew came out with their album, as nasty as they want to be, because that, they were in, I think it was
Oh, Lord.
Miami, growing up in Florida, like that would, dude, it was all over the news, and it was just, Ma Bell clutching her pearls and be like, "Oh my God, we can't allow this. This is, this is horrific." And dude, you would have thought they were out there murdering people. And it's like, hey, this is really easy. If you don't like their music, don't buy their record. Don't buy their CD. Like it's turn the radio. Like it's truly that simple. But people got offended about things. So, they get offended about things so easily now. You know what? You know what else stopped happening by and large? Is kids stop having to hold the flashlights for their dads. Dude, you know how many times I held the flashlight for my dad and I got screamed at because I was not holding it in the right place, or, I was too busy like looking around, doing everything but holding the flashlight for my dad. I was like, you can't offend me. You can't hurt my feelings. I held the flashlight for my dad, man. Dad's trying to rebuild the carb on the 84 Buick Skylark that's, got a bad case of bronchitis, and you got to, consistently mash the gas pedal to get it to go down the road. He doesn't have time to be offended about anything. And and our parents.
But the thing is that they're not even truly offended because they sit here on one hand and what Dave Chappelle says offends me. And then they turn right back. I got to get back to my WAP song by Cardi B, which I'm not dogging on it because I like Cardi B's music personally, this and that. But it's not even like being offended because they turn right back around and do that, right?
And the other part is the people who do this, and there's people on both sides that do this, they're just trying to score wins. That's all they're trying to do. They don't stand for anything. They're not principled. They really don't have any values. They're just trying to score wins, and they're trying to remain relevant. And I love watching them because it's such a train wreck. But I'm Dog the Bounty Hunter, right? You haven't heard anything from Dog in a while. His TV show was, I think it's been off for maybe a couple of years. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it on for a while. And then you got this Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie case come along, and all of a sudden he jumps in there head first, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna find him. I'm gonna find him." And I'll put your hand down, Roger. I'll get to you in a minute. I'll let you break the news for for the two people who haven't heard yet. And so it's he jumps in and he's like, oh, "I'm gonna find him. I got him." And then flash in the pan. He was just trying to be relative again, man. That's all it was. He wasn't gonna find him. He knew. He was like, "Dude, I don't have a snowball's chance in hell, finding this kid." But I need to be relevant again. And I think that's a lot of it has to do with these idiots who, it's like, "Oh, I'm offended. I can't believe this. I can't believe that." But at the same time, they're like, "Oh my, this is immoral, this, that, and the other." But, they want to teach kids to accept pedophilia, and, they want to have drag shows for kindergartners, these people are nothing but human filth. So yeah. So Roger, what you got? You raise your hand like a good child in preschool. What you got?
Hey man, I'm trained. So I said, this quote, I said, me being a moderate centrist Democrat, if that causes you a problem, let me know, and I'd switch to be independent.
Nice,
Joe
nice. Oh,
Manchin
I thought you were. I
just
thought
said
you were
that to
going
a
to mention
reporter.
that they have identified the remains found in the park 5 miles north of Laundrie's house. That is indeed him. He's indeed deceased. Okay.
No, because I don't really care. I mean, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her and everything. But yeah, like the amount we talked about it last episode, amount of coverage, and yeah, I don't really care. I feel bad for the family, and who knows what happened or whatever. But
So, Josh, you
yeah, I
mentioned something. Yeah,
could care
you
less.
spot on all those points. Love it when we agree. Love it. Love it. Love it. People have too much time on their hands, too much navel gazing going on, so they got to, come up with something to get that W to make, get that, that drug rush to their brain that they're not getting on social media because it's kind of going away. They're getting a nerd to it, and they're not working. And I typed into the chat, if we want to keep going, which of course we want to keep going, but our sound engineer always bitches when we go over 90 minutes. But the worker shortage, dude. What the hell's going on? I mean, what is going on? I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, so I came up with a theory, and one of you guys jump in and tell me what you think. I mean, it's very odd to me that there's so many positions that aren't being filled, and especially in the healthcare industry. I mean, it's really insane. Where did all the people go? Did we have a rapture or something? Is this a Left Behind episode that I got stuck in? What's going on? And I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm like, I think one of the factors, not the factor, but one of the factors could be that, the workforce is made up of a lot of boomers, man, a lot of boomers, and boomers that were on the tail end of that generation. People that are a little bit younger than our parents. So people are in their early 60s, are still working, and they're still able to work. Talked to his 62-year-old guy just the other day, man. He's working. He plans on working for another 10 years. He's in a field he likes. But I think this COVID, for a lot of boomers, they're like, done, time for retirement. And you had a mass exodus of retirement nationwide. It's like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna get a what do they call it, USDA loan, and move out into the country. Get myself 10 acres, move out to the country, and just live a little simpler, or whatever. They just had enough money to retire. 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years before they thought they were going to. So I think we've had a mass exodus of boomers who probably could have been retired anyway. They just were remaining in the workforce. But Roger, I mean, or Josh, whoever wants to jump in on this, I mean, what is going on? And from the healthcare industry, giving 50,000 bonuses to respiratory therapists here in Lubbock, Texas. I mean, crazy, down to it takes damn an hour to get our food at Buffalo Wild Wings, which sucks, by the way. Went to a Buffalo Wild Wings for the first time in a while. Holy crap. It's like eating dog food. It's awful. Oh, Josh, that's a great comment. It's a culmination of things. Hadn't thought of that. Maybe you could expound on that a little bit. I'm messing with him.
Hilarious. So I think again, I think it's a culmination. So you got the boomers that are retiring because they see what's happening. They're like, you know what, we need to be able to enjoy the time we have left before before the apocalypse hits the United States. You have a lot of folks who are leaving their jobs because of COVID mandates, and then you know you also have a lot of places that are still paying unemployment, and people are getting paid to sit home. So I think you have those things. As far as the entry level jobs, dude, I think a lot of the entry level jobs, what you're seeing is that they're just not folks are just not interested. And young kids, if they're trying to make their way in different ways, then I started out, my very first job, my first like actual paying, like I had to file taxes job was, bagging groceries at Walmart. There's a lot of people out there our age. There's a lot of people out there, 16, 17, 18 years old who are not willing to do those jobs anymore. They're like, I'm not bagging groceries. I hear some, so we've got 3 teenagers, and every once in a while, you hear their friends who are like, I'm not standing out in that Chick-fil-A drive-through taking people's orders. I'm not. It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? You're 17 years old. You're 18 years old. You don't know shit. You have zero skills. What are you gonna do? Well, I'm not gonna do that. Okay. Well, I don't know. And then you have parents who turn around and it's like, well, yeah, our kids still live at home. But like, how old are your kids? Well, they're 30 and Chad's 33. It's like, okay, those aren't kids. Those are grown ass adults that you're letting freeload on you. Right. And you have a lot. You absolutely have a lot of that. Then that's just, dude, it's absolutely insane. So the Domino's, so we went and did a hike over in the Uwharrie National Forest, not too far from us, this past weekend, and we passed a Domino's in this little old town. Right, I mean, this thing has one stoplight, and you drive through it to get to Charlotte. That's the only reason people go there. The sign out in front of the Domino's: $5,000 hiring bonus. $5,000 hiring bonus. I was like, I'm delivering pizzas tonight. Like, I'm gonna stop. Like, I'm gonna get a job at Domino's delivering pizzas. They're giving me $5,000 hiring bonus. Now, there's some stipulations with that. You probably got to, you got to do, you got to work there for 18 months or 12 to 18 months before you get, your payout or whatever. I'm sure it's not 5K the day you get, the day you get hired, because you just get that and turn around and quit the next day and walk up with your 5K. But still, like, that's absolutely insane. And I think I mentioned it before, when we were in Montana, the Walmart in Bozeman, Montana was starting salary $22 an hour. $22 an hour. I was like, dude, I'll come work 3-4 nights a week at the Walmart. $22 an hour? Dude, that's some good bourbon money right there. That's some ammo money. I mean, that's just like, I don't understand it. I don't know if, I think it's just an amalgamation of all those things, but maybe Roger has a little bit more insight into it. But dude, the labor shortage, absolutely insane, especially like you were talking about in the healthcare field. And a lot of that, though, I think is due to the COVID mandate, specifically in the healthcare field. So I don't know if Roger's got a different idea on it.
Well, according to Psaki, it's because there's just increased demand. So you just don't have the workers to meet the demand. Now, you hit it on the head. It's a culmination of things. So this is something that the administration has failed to do. And some of this goes back to the Trump administration. So it's not all just Biden. Some of this goes across. But this takes us to the broader picture of just the overall competency of the Biden administration. So when you look at the work environment, the last administration and this administration, and talking about the various department heads and this, they set the conditions, right? They have changed the work environment. So when you look at the eviction moratorium, right? How long did we go before you could actually finally evict somebody? And then it's even worse than that, because then they said, okay, guess what? HUD or whoever is like, you have no authority to do that. Or I'm sorry, CDC. You have no authority to do that. Well, you still have to go through the courts. So you're not going to have anybody evicted. So that means that people aren't paying mortgages for 2 years now, going on 2 years. Okay. You've got stimulus checks that one just came out last Friday that continue to roll out. Some of these are not necessarily connected, as far as mandates and this and that, or government agencies, but you've got an increased amount of food banks. Now that's anecdotal. That's what I see here. I don't know how that is nationwide, but like here, there were literally, high school football fields full of like food bank or food that people could drive up and just pick up a bag of groceries and this and that, not having to pay for groceries. Utility companies, again, this is maybe more regional here for what I saw, but I remember getting letters from, Power, Water, and even the internet, dude. Even Cox Internet came out and said, hey, we're not going to shut your internet off, during this time. If you can't make payments, hey, we'll just work it out later. And that went for several months. So you've really taken away all the expenses that people have to pay when you talk about those entry level jobs. I mean, you've changed the work environment. And like Josh said, people don't want to go back to that or don't even want to enter into that. I'm not going to go work for Jack in the Box. I can sit here and collect my COVID money for how many months did that go on? Okay. And oh, by the way, you can still collect unemployment. You just don't get the COVID bumper. Right. And then when you say that I can do that and I don't have to pay rent, so you can't evict me, and I don't have to pay for my utilities, and I'm getting a stimulus check, dude, you can go a long time. You can go a long time. Because the other thing that happened, and this is part of COVID with all these lockdowns, people weren't going out for a long time. So now you're starting to see all these, mental issues that are coming up. People just got accustomed to staying home. I mean, what happened? Remember, like Netflix's, revenue skyrocketed, right? I can imagine Xbox and PlayStation probably did the same thing because people just decided to stay home. Well, I'm sorry, they didn't decide to stay home. Now they're deciding to stay home. Back then, the government told you you're going to stay home, and you did it. And so they just got accustomed to that. It's a much cheaper lifestyle. And with some of that money that's stockpiled between that and then what Luke said with the baby boomers, you've got a surging, stock market. So 401ks are at an all-time high. People have more money in the equity markets than they ever had. And they're saying, you know what, I'm just not going back to it. So it's you're absolutely right. It's a combination of everything. And, reading from what they're putting out, even on like CNN and this and that, they're like, hey, man, this thing might actually be around a lot longer than what you believe. And it's not just here, it's globally. But it goes back, I tie this back to the current admin where they set the conditions. It's like their policies, their actions are the reason we are where we're at. And then they don't know why and can't go fix it. And I'll take it back to like, hey, anybody bought gas lately? Dude, I saw a thing with Northern California where somebody was paying over $7 a gallon for gas, regular unleaded, right? I think premium was like almost $8 or $7.99 or something like that. So you take this to, presidents, because you have all these economic experts. Presidents don't control the price of oil. So you had the Biden administration attack the oil and gas industry, right? They last week had to go to the private companies and ask for help. Said, hey, can you lower gas prices? Because they have no clue how this works. They have no clue how a commodity works and supply and demand works. It just shows you that, right? No, they're not going to just lower prices. Isn't that just arbitrary, right? They factor in a lot of this stuff with it. But when you've got what happened with the Keystone Pipeline, when you've got the EPA regs that have come out, oh, by the way, suspended oil and gas leases on public lands. You also ended fossil fuel subsidies. What do you think is going to happen to the price of oil? And then there is a demand increase because people are going back to work, right? So according to the administration, every job that was lost during the pandemic has now been recovered. Okay, so we'll go off that. That's their official statement. So now you're back to a full workforce, which we're not, because there's still 10 million jobs that are not filled. But anyway, whatever. We won't even play with those numbers there. So now you've got increased demand. What did you think was going to happen? Again, they just lack the foresight. You set these conditions, right, to be in this position. Now you're here and you're like, well, how did we get here? And your answer is to go to the private companies and say, hey, man, can you just lower your prices? That's not how it works. That's just like Obamacare. Everybody loves Obamacare. Yeah, you know what Obamacare is based off of? Medicare rates. They're not going to ask private companies to lower their prices. They're just going to say, oh, by the way, you're now in a government contract and you will accept Medicare rates that are going to be lower. That's how they're doing it. I mean, Luke, I don't even know how else to put it, but it's like, you set these conditions, everybody's telling you this is the way that we're going. You end up there and it's like, well, hey, how did we get here? And, before I kick it to you, I'll put it this way. And I'm curious to see what the 2021 numbers come out, because contrary to popular belief, and people fact check this and that, and it pisses me off. But when you look at the energy production, so it being energy independent just means that your energy production is higher than your consumption, right? And they don't really take it, method for method. It's just your overall, and they measure it on BTUs and whatever. So 2018 to 2020, when we became energy independent, our energy production had gone up to 95.7 quadrillion BTUs, consumption 92.94 BTU quadrillion BTUs as far as consumption. So I kind of get your thoughts, but 2021,
No.
I maybe I see a little bit of a
No,
reversal
no
of that. Huh?
way.
You think we're still going to be
Unless
energy
the
independent or
dual
what?
reality thing kicks in where the administration and the narrative says one thing and then reality says another. But to answer your question, no, I don't. I think those numbers will go way down. And man, oh man, when that headline came out, Roger sent it to us. I about lost my mind. We're like, the Biden administration taps, oil or petroleum companies to help lower prices, and it's like, you obviously, I lost my freaking mind. I was like, you don't know how any of this works. Where are your people checking what you say to the meet? I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get them. I understand how commodities work somewhat, probably not as well as Roger and Josh, but I understand it. It's just absolutely mind-boggling, Josh. I mean, it almost seems as if they're doing it on purpose. It seems as if that they're trying to run things down on purpose, and I go down that rabbit hole. Okay, why would they be trying to do this on purpose? Is it to drive us toward green energy? Um, is it to, Manchurian candidate where they're just going to run the United States down into the ground? I tend to think that they're doing a lot of this on purpose to drive artificial demand to green energy, and the end state on that is just not good. I think we said in one of our earliest podcasts about green energy is there a place for it? Sure, but the demand has to be there, and it can't be artificial. Name me one time in economic history, and I'm serious about this, if somebody wants to educate me, where someone created an artificial demand for something and it ended up working in the long term. It doesn't work. I mean, I don't know too much about economics, but I do know that artificial demand doesn't work, and that's what's happened with this green energy thing. Wind energy is, it's a good idea, but it's just not there yet. Solar energy is a great idea. We're just not there yet. Maybe when real demand presents itself, if we see peak oil someday, first of all, if peak oil ever actually does happen, that will be the end of your life as you know it for the next 2 decades, man. It will be mass hysteria. Your life will change. People will suffer, which will make Josh very happy. What will not make Josh happy is when he's suffering along with him. But if peak oil does hit, you're going to see massive leaps forward in alternative energy sources. Why? Because the demand is there. It will be there, and it will be real. So until the demand is there, I mean, we can try to say we're going to go green and, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot while China and India catch up to us and pass us by while we're, left in their wake. But yeah, it's just, Roger, you caught me off guard with that because, I couldn't believe the incompetence, and I couldn't believe that somebody actually said that to the public. We'd like the petroleum companies to help after you shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Winch. Yes, I said winch. But Josh, I've kind of gone off a little bit. I might be kind of going off the rails here. What are your thoughts on it? Is it on purpose? Are they doing it on purpose? Why are they doing this? Are they
I
just,
don't know.
what's going on?
So I go back and forth on that exact same thing, and we kind of chat about it every once in a while at work. It's like there's no way, because there's some of these things. It's like there's no way they can be this incompetent. Like let's just as an example, the $1 trillion coin. Like there's no way they can be this incompetent. Like this has to be intentional. And then you can go back and be like, no, they're truly that dumb. They're almost as dumb as the 81 million people who voted for them. But then you go back and you're like, there's no way. But I think it's to use one of your favorite words, Luke. I think it's insidious what they're doing. I think not only are they trying to you know create artificial demand for green energy, I think they're doing it in every other area so they can come back and pass legislation to fundamentally transform the United States and and subvert the Constitution. Barry said it when he got elected. When he got elected, we are going to fundamentally transform the United States. And I think that that is being continued with this administration, because dude, there's a certain level of incompetence that you get with, with some of these folks, right? And then, but you go back and you look at them. A lot of these people are not stupid. They're not stupid by, by any stretch of the imagination. And you're like, there's no way that this is incompetence at this point. At this point, there's no way. There's no way that, incompetence has, led be like, man, I just don't know what to do at the ports. All these ships are so backed up, and I just don't know what to do. Okay, well, there's probably a lot of people, that work for you, work with you, be like, hey, idiot, this is what you do. Like, this is how you fix this. And for them not to do it, it's not incompetence. It's insidious. It's deliberate at this point. And it just, yeah, I just, there's no other way. There's no other way that this makes sense. I mean, you trying to apply Occam's razor to it. Like, what's the most logical explanation? It's intentional, and this is deliberate. I don't know. So, right, we'll see what Roger thinks on that. But you can chalk some things up to incompetence, but at this point, no, it's intentional, 100% intentional.
It's no different than what we were talking about with San Francisco. You see what's going on. You see what the result of what your policies are, and they continue down that road. So it just goes back to they don't care. So final word, go around the horn one time. My last piece here. One, I feel bad for the thousands and thousands of folks that may have had a tattoo like this or, whatever. But so the new Superman is going to be gay. And they also changed the motto. So it's no longer truth, justice, and the American way, but is truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Going back to my favorite, term for Luke, they've gone global. So it's no longer about America. And if we joke about it, it's no longer America first, right? It's global. And there's another term for that that I'll let our listeners, I'm sure you can guess it, but it's no longer about the American people, and based on your own merit and hard work, we have to rise as a global people. So all those folks out there, I don't know if there's going to be a huge tattoo removal. I don't know if it matters one way or another. And it's not the original Superman. It's the I think it's supposed to be his son or something like that, and he has a boyfriend or whatever. But kind of curious to see what what, maybe I'll reach out to him. I'm going to reach out to Shaquille O'Neal because I know he's got the Man of Steel tattoo on his arm, and see if he's got any opinions on that. So that's all I got to say, Luke.
Sorry about that. I wanted to close out. No, I'm joking. Josh, you can close us out. Yeah, so I got with my 34.5 semi-flaccid. I started up, and I got a little good news story about the workforce. I was in Amarillo this week, and staying at a hotel. Wife's back home taking care of things, doing the real work, and I had Domino's pizza like 3 nights in a row. It was great. It's my favorite food. I wasn't having it 6 times a day. I got to step it up. I know, folks, but so I went to Domino's that last night, and I ordered a pizza, and I went to check out, and I did carry out, and went to pick it up, and the kid behind the counter, man, they were hard at work, and you can see their little Domino's tracker. I love that, and they just crank them out, and those kids are all in there working. It wasn't anybody over the age of 24, and they were doing it right. Yeah, in my opinion, I love to see that. These kids working hard, man, learning the work ethic. And I go to check out, and the kid quotes me a price, and it's like $17, and I was like, oh, okay, it's one pizza, and I was like, okay, whatever. He goes, well, that's too much. He goes, that's too much. I said, well, I didn't put a coupon on it. I didn't see one for a large pizza. And he goes, let me fix that for you. And he put a coupon on there. He didn't have to do that because I was ready to pay, man. I had my card out and everything. And he's like, let me fix that for you. He put a coupon on there, charged me $7. And so I was like, man, I didn't have any cash to leave him a tip. So I went out to an ATM, got some cash, brought it back, and gave it to him because, man, I mean, he didn't have to do that. That's good customer service, and that's something I'm seeing less and less. So I encourage everyone, if you see somebody out there that's going the extra mile, especially when they don't have to, with customer service, and they're young or old, it doesn't matter, man. Take care of them. Because, man, that bit, I gave him $20.
How much
I
did you
was
tip
just going to
him?
give him 10
How much did you tip
because
him?
he saved me $10, and I was ready to pay for that, but I went ahead and gave him 20, make him feel good. I don't know. But three shout outs. So shout out to Domino's at 2105 South Culper in Amarillo, Texas. They're doing it right. Want to give a shout out to Texas Parks and Wildlife in Northwest Texas. Those guys are on the ball, man. They're out there moving and shaking, and they are not letting up. Ransom Canyon Police Department, keep it up. Think we've got a new listener out there. I appreciate your help, and I take every opportunity to help you out as well. And one final shout out, Sherman County Sheriff Ted Allen. That guy is a piece of work in a very good way. Maybe we can get him on the show someday. Former rodeo rider, rancher, and sheriff of a great county. So appreciate all y'all listening. Kick it to Josh. Have a good one, everybody.
Nice. Hey, real quick on your 34.5 semi-flaccid plant, are you doing any yoga incorporated into that?
It's not yoga. It is yoga kind of, but what you do is you stretch, and you kind of arch your back like a dog and crank your butt cheeks to the side, sitting on wood. You have to be sitting on wood, and you have to do this every time you feel the need to fart. And you crank that back, stretch it, crank that cheek up, and let out the loudest fart you possibly can. That's part of 34.5 flaccid. So it is a little stretching. It's a little, muscle contraction. So yeah, that's part of it.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So with that, we're just gonna end this here. To protect the women and children. Hey, real quick, big shout out to Carlton Zeus. Thanks again for the intro music. And until next time, I would say come visit us on our website, but that is still not a thing yet. So maybe that'll get up within, I don't know, maybe the next year or so. I don't know what's going to happen first, the website or Biden's approval rating climbs back up above 40. So,
or Joe Exotic comes on,
or Joe Exotic comes on, or Mike Huckabee. So that'll do it for this episode. Until next time, you guys keep your canteen cups full of good whiskey and tightly secured.